on here with our KIM10 speakers. Today, you're going to hear from another wonderful woman who has gone through the Radiant Speaker Academy and on to the certification to become a KIM10 speaker. Stay tuned. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back. I have a wonderful guest with me today that I want to introduce to you if you haven't met Fanny Vermes before. Fanny and I go way, way back. We won't go into that story, but I just love the journey that you're on, Fanny. Thank you so much for being willing to share about your experience recently for the KIM10 certification.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It is an honor and privilege to be here. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about what all happened.
Yeah. So we've already talked about in a previous, people know what KIM10 is. So let's just get right into it. What was it that prompted you to want to take the training in the Radiant Speaker Academy and specifically in the KIM10 stage framework?
Well, I would say what prompted me was probably a word from the Lord, a nudge from the Lord that said, hey, you need to speak. And I went, what? Are you sure I need to speak? Because I really don't like to speak. At least I didn't think I liked to speak until I experienced KIM10 and I went, oh, what happened? Yeah. So my nudge was I've been in a season where I was trying to find my voice. I knew the Lord was wanting me to speak about different things, my story, and I didn't really know how to put things together. Because in my mind, I don't know if any of you are like me, but I had so many ideas and so many thoughts. I didn't quite know how to bring everything together. Well, what part? What am I supposed to talk about? What is my story? So that prompted me to say, okay, I need help. I need help to craft a message. And I know there is a message burning in me that God's been pushing me. And I was just taking that step to say, okay, I need help. I'm doing afraid. And let's just see what happens. And then RSA and KIM10 came about.
That's so good. So just for a little understanding for those who don't know you, give us a little bit of a backdrop of what you did, what you're involved with, your career kind of thing. Because even though you said, I don't like to speak, you had been speaking.
Yes, you're right. So my background is I'm actually trained as a critical care nurse and have worked in critical care for 18 years. 20 is in nursing, and I have been speaking and teaching as well as faculty member in the context of teaching and training nurses to become critical care nurses, their expertise level in the clinical aspect. I've also taught with a company called Switchback OS, where we help teams to connect and figure out, hey, what is your team culture? What's going on? How can we help you build your team well? But my speaking really has been in the teaching context, but not as, okay, there's a story I need to tell that needs to get out about me. It was most of my teaching surrounding, what data or what content academically do I need to put forward to help others? This was quite a bit different because now it's becoming personal. It wasn't subjective or objective, I should say, externally. This is now personal. So it was very different for me.
Wow. I love how it made you that differentiation, because that's often the case. I remember, well, I won't go into any of that. We'll leave that for another time. But yeah, that is a common struggle, just kind of switching modalities or switching when it becomes personal. So tell me a little bit about what you learned in taking the training prior to the certification. And we're going to talk about the certification process and that is a separate entity of itself. But in the course itself, what were some of the things that you learned that helped you to maybe figure out what to speak on?
Yeah, great question, Lisa. I think for me, the coaches were amazing, but through the 9-week process, what I learned was to understand what my story is, what message that I want to bring it's not even about talking content or more words, is how do I make impact and become transformational? How can I make a difference and impact in someone else's life, by using less words with a message that they can relate with, because it's really not about me. So what I found really helpful was in the 9-week process, we went through the stages of, okay, what is your message? Let's ask us a few questions. I mean, we did have to do some work, but then there was a framework as guideposts for me to say, okay, this is how you would open. This is how you would close. Here's your main point. And then in it, there were so many questions that we were taught to ask ourselves. Well, how does this bring back to, okay, what is the main message you want to say? Does it make sense? So part of the process was asking myself those questions and having coaches to help me kind of steer what made sense for now. Because what I've learned is there's a lot more messages than one, but what is the now message? And I think that consistent process and step by step allowed me to gain clarity about who I am, for one, in context of my message. What do I want to share? What do I have to bring that can actually help somebody else, as well as then how to do it well. Like even just talking. Again, I am a speaker, changing my language. I am a speaker. So how do I speak effectively?
Awesome. Yes, I love that. So I know that going into the certification process, those 2 days in person, I know that there was very emotional for you.
Yes, very much so.
Tell me a little bit about what you were experiencing going into it, and then, going through it and on the other side. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. Now, to many people, I may appear very confident, that I am very strong and I know exactly what I want to say and that I have no fear. But in reality, I had a lot of fear coming out to speak because I actually was not sure if my message had value. I didn't believe in my own voice. I didn't believe in my own story as to whether it could be impactful for other people. So going into it, I was still questioning and doubting my place. Really, God, you want me to take this class and speak and be a speaker? Like, you don't understand. I don't really have, I'm still working on this message as I'm sitting on the plane and praying, going, oh, God, help me, right? But God is so good because he takes us when we are obedient and we're willing to step into the uncomfortable, because he chose to call me into my identity as a speaker, even though I don't yet believe it. If I did choose to step in, even though scared and terrified. Yes, the day before I was stressing, I did not sleep. I was going through the message again and again, even seconds before my practice run. I was like, do I really have it? No, I was still madly trying to write and figure out my notes. And then once I went through it, it was a whole other story. I was still terrified, but in the process, I started to hear my own voice. And with the feedback I received from the panel of coaches and just the atmosphere in the room with other women listening to my story, it actually encouraged me and built me up to say, yeah, my story does have value. And yes, I can speak. So what did it do for me in the process? I would say it moved me from a place of being terrified and afraid, whether or not I believed in myself that I had a voice, to knowing I have a voice and then owning the fact that, yes, I do have a message and this is who I am and I can speak it. And with God in it.
Yes. Yes. And I know when you gave your message on that first day, which was kind of the practice run day, there was a lot of questions for you in terms of how does this fit with, because I'm speaking to one audience. And talk to me a little bit about how the feedback shifted or helped you to be able to adapt your message so that even though you weren't speaking to nurses, you could still use the same message and have it be very effective. What were some of the things that helped you shift maybe your whole mindset or your approach to that?
Great question, Lisa. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, that 10 minutes almost seemed like an eternity when you're on the stage, but it happens. You're watching the clock. I did my message, and with the coaching, I remember one of the coaches asked me, "Hey, Fanny, do you want to be a KIM10 speaker?"
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. With all my heart, I want to be a KIM10." Then they were able to actually ask me, "So what is your message about? Who are you talking to?" They coached me on, well, who is my audience? Who am I
Mm-hmm.
speaking to? And when I heard that, oh, I can actually bring Jesus into it. And this is my audience of whom I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I prepared the message for specifically critical care nurses, it did a shift in me where I go, okay, I can actually bring the exact same message and just tweak it a little bit. And it's just as powerful. It's understanding my audience. And I would say the way in which the coaches coached,
Mm-hmm.
I really felt that they were for my success. They were for me. And they were able to pick very detailed things. I went, how did you even pick that out? But when I applied it and went back and said, okay, what does this look like now? What does it sound like? And I tweaked the message. It was night and day for me. In that, even in my speaking, I had even greater confidence in myself. Maybe it connected with my spirit more. I'm not sure. But it had a different push behind it because I think I had more of an assurance that, yes, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. And so day 2, you definitely felt more present. You felt more present in the moment as you were presenting. And so much so that of course, we chose 4 people of the 21 who would give their KIM10 at the following conference right after that event. And you were one of those 4. Wow.
Wow is right.
Wow.
I'm still pinching myself. You see me smile? I'm so like, I can't believe
So
it.
do you want to share anything about that? How that impacted you, or what difference, what even to go then on and do it another time at the conference,
Yeah.
how that felt for you?
I really felt like I was in another space. I kind of went, okay, God, you told me to do this. I'm already terrified. I'm doing this. Yes, I made it through. Great. And now what? Again? I'm like, you're being so serious. Okay. But in the repeat, even though I was still a little bit nervous or a lot nervous, for me, doing it 3 times in a row and still listening to God in between to say, okay, what is the message? Because each time I learned to hear what he was saying. And then because now I know my story, okay, what is the message you want to bring? And I think if anything, it's a recognition that, okay, when I keep Jesus as the focus and the purpose of what he asked of me to do, it's okay if I go in scared if I don't know all of it, because it's really only my 3rd time doing it. But I definitely, it definitely solidified my belief that, yes, I am to be a speaker. And the other piece, which I didn't talk about, Lisa, I think was really valuable for me in the process of those 2 days, was the experience that I felt in the room as I listened to each coach the other women in the room. I did not want to leave the room because hearing their stories was so impactful for me. Not only could I learn from their story, but the coaching that happened, I was madly taking notes, going, ooh, I can take that one. I can take that one, and I can apply it. But even more than that, the presence of God in that room. And I don't know that it is one thing that one person said, but I do believe is in the power of the spoken word, where when we speak, we begin to open doors and open opportunities for creativity in us, but also listening to who we really are. And we get to agree with, even if we don't understand it, we get to agree with what's being said and shared and step into that. So that was, I would say, hands down, the best money I've ever spent in personal investment. Just being in the room with the coaches and with other women, we genuinely cheered on each person and celebrated their stories. And that just blew me away.
Wow, that's so powerful. It was indeed powerful. And yeah, we all kind of walked out of there like, oh my goodness, what just happened?
Yeah.
God is so good
Yeah.
in terms of that. We really felt his presence in that whole process. So now that it's done, how would you describe, because of going through that process, because of taking the course, going through that certification and having to speak your message in that modality and get coached, what would you say now is the result for you? Or that's like, because of work doing this, now you are what? Now you're able to do what, or now what?
Right. Well, because of going through it and listening and obeying, I actually now have greater clarity as to what my mission and my vision is to speak and build, what I'm to speak about, which before doing KIM10, I was a little bit confused. Is it this message, God, about, healthcare and nurses, or is it, church stuff? Like, what is it? Who's my audience? And I think having done that, it's given me clarity and freedom to adapt the messages that God's giving me in both places.
Cool.
And in the languages that are required. So what it has done for me is, I know I'm confident to say, yes, I am a speaker. It's pushed me to stay in the practice of speaking and pushing myself and learning more skills. But it's also, I don't know how to describe it, Lisa, aside from just being in a place where I now feel and know what alignment with what God's purposes and design of who I am is, and I get to walk in that.
Wow.
And it's no longer a struggle of, do I not? Do I speak? Do I not speak? It's no, yes, I'm speaking. And now I have clarity as to what I'm speaking about, but also to whom.
So good. I love it. And isn't it so freeing to be able to be in that place where
So freeing, so freeing. And now I can't stop talking.
that's now you are like, it's like a horse that's just been let out the go. It's like,
yes, almost. Rein it in, but in a good way.
no, it's good. I love it. I love it that you're unleashing the voice of God within you through you. So if someone is listening today and they're sitting on the fence thinking about enrolling in this process of learning the KIM10 framework and getting certified on to speak on a KIM10 stage, what would you say to them?
Do it. Do it. I would say if you're sitting on the fence, as much as I was unsure sitting on the fence, but if you feel that nudge, the outcome of that nudge of saying yes is God opens doors in so many ways. And I'm not even talking about, financial or where to speak, because I believe that will come. I don't have spaces and places yet, but what I do know is when I'm faithful to continue to speak the truth and what he has to bring, it actually grows in me to the point where God will bring all the connections and all the people. I would say do it because I found my voice in the process. I owning my identity in the process of how God's made me. And I believe that, if God can do that for someone who's very skeptical and not very confident in herself with the idea of speaking or being on stages or ever being on stage and sharing your personal story, if he can shift me that much, he can shift you just as much, if not more. And do it.
So good.
And I want to listen to you.
So good. Thank you so much, Fanny. Any last words that you want to share before we close out here today?
I would say, the value in the room and the amount of skill heart, compassion, and truth that you experience going through this class and then taking that 2-day certification, it is worth every penny. And if I had to do it all over again, I will do it. And I'm still going to keep taking and keep practicing so I can encourage others and I myself continue to speak what God has in store.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa.
As you're listening today, you may have felt prompted to say, hey, I want to take that course. I want to become a much better speaker. I want to be able to speak with confidence, clarity, and transformational impact. If you're interested in learning more about how to become a certified KIM10 speaker and get a part of the movement to get on KIM10 stages, or just to up-level your skills as a speaker, then I want to invite you to check out the link in the comments below, wherever you're listening to this, and we'll send you information when the next round is open up. In the meantime, your voice is an instrument of transformation and needs to be heard, so let it be heard.